Good evening. I'd like to call the village board meeting for the Village of Cary for March 5th, 2024 to order with roll call, please.
Collier.
Here.
Dudek.
Here.
Walrath.
Here.
McAlpine. Here. Weinhammer.
Here.
Stefani.
Here.
Thank you. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. I have one individual signed in, Al Schuman. Yep.
It's regarding the last item on your agenda.
On the
Richfield Homes.
Oh, that's on the. It's just items for separate action. You wanted to talk about the property on Second Street and 14.
Yes. It's just concerning to me that
Is it for Richfield?
Ridgefield, J. Dula.
Okay. Well, I'll call you back when we're talking about that. It'll be just in just a few minutes, please. Is there anybody else who would like to address the village board? Hold on one second. Address your name and address, please.
My name's Chris. Has it ever been brought up to moving the meetings till 7 o'clock by chance? Has anybody ever suggested that?
Yes, just recently a lady suggested we move it to 7 o'clock. And the reason I explained why we don't have a meeting at 7 o'clock is because we have back-to-back meetings. All the other municipalities have one meeting a night. We have two back-to-back. And it's been the consensus of the board for the last 10 years since we've been doing that it works well for us.
Okay.
And we give people ample opportunity to come up and talk in the public. I let this individual know that they're able to submit an email that could be read into the minutes. They can set up meetings outside of this. For us to disrupt an entire thing for one person that has asked for that doesn't really make any sense. We have operated like this I've been mayor for 11 years. I think we changed it 10 years ago. It's worked well since. So I don't foresee, as I told her, I don't foresee changing the meeting time.
I've gone to a couple of these home rule things, and nobody in the meetings ever goes to them.
We're aware of that.
And it's
When you're touching on that too, the reason we have so much public outreach for these meetings is we've had many different times. We've had mornings, we've had afternoons, we've had evenings. We've had different locations throughout the community to give people an opportunity that fits their schedule. So we've had meetings till 8 o'clock at night. We've had meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning. So to your point, the attendance at some of these meetings is low, but we've been trying our best to make sure that meetings are attainable and that people can attend them. But as I mentioned to this one individual, the first person in 11 years that's asked me to change me, and I said, it's just, I don't foresee it happening.
okay.
So, all right? Anybody else like to address the village board? We'll go ahead and close open forum at 6:04. We have one thing, actually two things on my mayor's report. We have an anniversary here. Since you're here, like I do to everybody else, we're going to go up there.
Front and center.
I go embarrass you like I embarrass everybody else, right? I do this. We are formally recognizing our village administrator who's been with the village of Cary for 10 years. He stepped into this role a little less than a year ago. He started with the village of Cary as our public works director. We were very excited at the time that he joined us. He brought a new sense of professionalism and enthusiasm, not to mention his unbelievable graphic design abilities. Because I'm an illustration guy. I'm a graphic. I need charts. I need vision, and they come up with all these things for me. It makes it so much easier. And so we work very well when it comes to that. But one of the key accomplishments that this young man has, this young man has really been instrumental in the village of Cary, is helping us move forward with our infrastructure and our roads. But more importantly, he was in charge of our new train depot, which they said was never going to happen, but we got it done. They said it would never fit on that side of the road, but we got it on that side of the tracks, but we got it done. And he led the charge on that, so we're thrilled about that. And bigger and better than that is this beautiful building. This was his pet child. He ran the entire process. He was the point man. He dealt with all the needs and the things that go on when you're building a building like this. And he handled them with dignity and grace and with the utmost professionalism. You know, sometimes they had to say, let's talk a little bit lower because I can understand these things. Because he's an engineer by trade. I have two kids. Two of my boys are engineers, so I kind of get a little bit of that, and you get that formality and the concise and why we do what we do. So he's been an incredible asset to the community. We are thankful that you have survived 10 years with me, at least. So we look forward to the next 10. Your wife and children are here. Stacy, you want to wave? Congratulate this young man. He's got a nice check. I'm sure he will take you out. It's a small token of our appreciation. It's nothing much, but it's his token, and you can get Happy Meal or go to Tasty Sushi. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Thank you for everything. One other thing that I want to talk about. It's a fact that the Village of Cary has a referendum on the ballot on March 19th regarding trying to position ourselves in a home rule status because we're currently home rule. Non-home rule. Thank you. It's been brought to my attention, and I've had a ton of public outreach about some of the advertising that we've been getting from the Realtors Association. And they've asked me to publicly comment on some of these flyers that people have been getting in their mail. And I just want to clarify, because my job, our job, is to make sure that our voters and our residents and our businesses can make a decision based on facts. Not what people think it is or not what people want it to be, but by facts. To Chris's point, we've had, by the time this is all said and done, we will probably have had almost 20 different meetings, including these meetings, where people have had an opportunity to find out about what home rule is and what it's not. So with our outreach that we've had, some of the ads that have come out from the Realtors Association is that home rule sales tax, which is something that we are considering if we become home rule, will affect your grocery bill and drugs. It says it right here that their grocery bills and your drugs will go up. But the state statute prohibits that. Groceries and drugs are exempt from a home rule sales tax. So that's just not true. And a lot of people are very confused about this, and they've asked me. I've had meetings here with individuals. We've had meetings at the public outreaches that I got this. What does this mean? Well, this is just not true. Just not true at all. When they talk about we're implementing a $500,000 new sales tax, well, that's misleading. It's not true. Our information that we're doing is we're going to implement a 1% sales tax. We don't know exactly what that figure is going to be, and it's going to not affect just the Village of Cary residents, but the surrounding communities that come into our village, just like other communities. The second statement that here is that we can approve taxes without your approval. Again, that's just not true. When we approve our tax levy every spring, or every, what's the term I'm looking for? When we approve our tax levy, it's done in a public forum, at a public meeting, with public input. We listen to what people have to say. That, again, is misleading and is just not true. One of the other things on here is, where was the other one? There's so many here, I can't remember which one it was. I think that was pretty much, I think that's pretty much it. But, you know, we'd like to try to stay on target when we talk about these things. And I think it's very important. And I think that our staff and the trustees that have attended these public information centers have had very good luck making sure that people are able to make a decision based on facts. And again, we have handouts for people. We have an exhaustive presentation on our website at caryillinois.com. Go to Home Rule and figure out the things. We want you to make a decision that's based on facts and what you believe is best. And whatever happens, happens. We'll continue to be a great municipality. We'll get things done. But I just want to make sure, and I believe the board would back me on this, is to make sure that people are making an educated decision based on facts, not on what a special interest group is trying to steer towards. Did I do that okay? I had to be very careful on how I phrase these things. So anyway, that'll do it for my report. Moving to the general business, I will entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through H as shown on the village website and is displayed on the video monitor during the village board meeting.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll
Well,
call.
I'm sorry. I jumped ahead. Roll call, please, Courtney.
Dudek,
Mayor, I'd like to set aside item F and G just for a quick commentary, if I could.
Well, I had a motion to approve the second. Can we make a comment? Is it a commentary about the motion to approve this, or you just want to make a comment about it?
A comment about the two motions, or sorry, the two items, rather.
All right, so can I'll entertain a motion to amend the first motion to approve items A through E and H.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Dudek,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Stefani,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Okay, and I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute an agreement with Christopher Burke Engineering for the professional engineering services to the Jack's Channel property located at 197 Northwest Highway.
Mark, hang on a second. Sorry, Mayor. We had a resident that wanted to speak for this one.
No.
No, that's on
No,
the,
no, it's on
that's
the
on the
consent.
items for
This
separate
is
action.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Are we going to,
Yeah, I
okay,
thought we
are
were
we going to
gonna-
vote
We'll
on
have
the
to make a
motion
motion, then we can go into a discussion.
first? Okay, so we're not going to vote on the first ones first.
We did.
You did.
No,
We did.
Yep, no, hang on.
I thought we voted on separating them. I apologize.
Yes.
I thought we voted on separating, that we could vote on A through E and H.
Did we do that?
Yeah.
We made a motion.
We made a
To
motion, but we didn't
amend,
vote
to, I
on it.
made a motion to amend.
We need to vote on
yes.
it. Yeah, we need to vote on that first.
So roll call and motion to amend.
No, roll
No.
call to vote now. We already amended it.
Okay.
It's one of those days.
Well, to get into the discussion, I apologize. I'll make a motion to approve.
A through E and H.
A through E and H.
E-
Thanks, roll call for that.
Did we have a motion in a second?
I think we already did that, but
Yes,
yes.
it was
yes.
Trustee Collier and
And
then
then I
trustee
seconded it.
McAlpine.
Next time, please
I
tell me
know,
ahead.
I know.
Next time, tell
I
me
should
ahead
know
of the
better, I'm
meeting
sorry.
so I could pull that. Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second to make the amendment.
That's already done.
It's done.
Yeah.
To approve,
The other
G.
items.
Where's your A through E and H?
okay. Did you do the roll call on that?
Can I do it now?
Yes.
Okay. Walrath,
Yes.
Stefani,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Dudek,
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute an agreement with Christopher Burke Engineering for professional engineering services relating to the Jack's Channel property located at 197 Northwest Highway.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Dudek.
Thank you. And my apologies for the confusion. Just a very simple comment, and this is very related to Selke property, Mayor, which you and I suffered through a long time ago when we took the white building down. The village at that time, I think, spent either $100,000 or $150,000 to demolish the building and to clear the site. I believe at the time we filed a mortgage on that property, so then when it was sold, we'd be able to recoup from the sales proceeds. I don't know if that ever happened, but this to me is similar in nature to that, in that regardless of where the funding's coming from, in this case, proposed to be coming from the TIF, it's still money that the village is using to essentially provide a benefit to a private landowner. So I would just either like us to file a mortgage on the property if we're gonna invest $50-some-odd thousand, possibly more, so that if it's sold, we can recoup that, that money down the road.
You're referring to like a lien on the property?
Correct,
Not a
right.
mortgage.
Yeah, well, that would be a lien,
Oh, same thing. Okay. You are the banker.
yeah. I am the,
The common folk would call that, okay.
Perhaps we could have Director Simmons kind of outline the process by which some TIF-eligible expenses can be recouped.
well, can I, before he does that, and I appreciate hearing that, what I'm concerned about is if it's TIF-eligible expenses being recouped, isn't that still then ultimately borne by the taxpayers?
Well, let's have Director Simmons answer first, so that we'll address
Yeah,
that.
so from a development perspective, yes, this certainly is a cost that we're looking to incur to assist with the development of the property. Likely, if a developer were to come forward for that site, there would need to be a redevelopment agreement in place for that as well, so that there are various public improvements that the developer would have to perform on site. And more than likely, these costs that we would incur potentially could be incorporated into that redevelopment agreement, so that the development, still could occur on the property, but it would be an expense that would benefit the developer eventually in the long run. So there is the ability, I guess, from a recouping perspective, to have a lien or work with the property owner to say that, that if should the property be sold, that we would be reimbursed for those expenses. But I would envision if this project were to go forward and project were to actually take place on the site, more than likely that these funds would be incorporated into that redevelopment agreement for that site as an incentive to develop the property in any way, just due to the challenges that that property has from a development perspective.
Attorney Euler is going to make a comment.
Okay.
It can be even simpler than that. I mean, that's an acceptable mechanism for recouping the cost. But if you want to show this as whatever it may be, a loan, a liability owed back to the village that will be recouped from the TIF, no matter what, whether it's part of a redevelopment agreement or not, as soon as there is available increment, you can, in fact, begin to reimburse the village for the cost by putting it in a resolution that memorializes the cost. So whichever method you prefer, or both, you can recoup those costs in the event that increment begins to be generated. That's not dedicated to some other purpose.
And I appreciate that as well. I guess my point is really improving the property. If we went in there and built 3 piers, that's improving the property. That benefits everybody in Cary. To do a study for a private landowner may not. That's my distinction. And I could be in the minority thinking that way, but that's the way I think, and that's why I asked the question.
Well, I understand your thought process on that, but the study is going to have a tremendous impact on the developmental abilities of that particular piece of property. There's a lot of unknowns, and we've had substantial interest in the property, and everybody that has inquired about the property would like to know some of these things. So we're just trying to think, and then we could do a recapture agreement when things happen. We can create the real resolution, as Attorney Euler has said. But I think that, in my opinion, I think that we've been trying to do this for years, and this is a positive step, and it's been received positively by the development community that we are taking this initiative. So.
I'm in favor of it. I just want to be able to.
Well, I know, but I totally get what you're coming from, where you're coming from with, but there are mechanisms in place where the taxpayers can benefit from this.
And kind of echoing what we mentioned in the CIP workshops, the interest that we have in the property is further enhanced by the ability to actually help define what is developable on the property. There are so many unusual parameters on the site that these studies will be able to focus that and perhaps drum up more interest and more options for it through the TIF.
Okay, roll call, please. Oh, did you have a question on this, Trustee Lauer? Roll call, please.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Dudek,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Stefani,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Thank you. Now moving to an approval of a resolution authorizing the village administrator to execute an agreement with the Jacks Channel property owner for access and assumption of risk for the benefit of performing pre-development engineering analysis on the property located at 197 Northwest Highway.
So moved.
Second?
Any comments on that? Trustee Dudek? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
McAlpine,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Stefani,
Yes.
Dudek,
Yes.
Thank you. Now moving to items for separate action, I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution entering into an incentive agreement with Ridgefield Homes LLC in the amount not to exceed $73,341.75 for public infrastructure improvements to the located property at 106 through 124 East Main.
So moved.
Second.
We had a resident that wanted to, did you want to hear any discussion first before you ask your questions, or would you like to propose your questions now?
It concerns me that this property here was zoned residential from business. It was for sale for $285,000. County records said it was sold for $150,000. That's $135 saving to the developer. Now he's asking for $73,000 in infrastructure improvements. As a developer, you know when you go through permit process, there's always changes, and they're never for the good for yourself. You've already gave him property in Cimarron for $105,000 that was listed for $55,000 a lot, which is $275,000 if they added 5 lots. So in all, the village has given them $305,000 in discounts already of asking price property. With property prices the way they are now, I don't see why the village should give him any money for improvements. It doesn't make sense. Other than greed has no morals to me. It's just, this $55,000 a lot's been on my mind. I walk this town every day. I know where every property is, how much it costs. I research it. I research it on the county. This is just upsetting to me. A concerned citizen that you're just giving property away to a developer. And now he's asking for $73,000. I mean, this is ridiculous.
I understand. I'll answer the question before we get into discussion about the village retaining property that's been on the market. Those properties have been on the market for years.
It doesn't matter. You're not paying taxes on it. All you're doing is mowing the grass.
I know.
Someone's going to give you money for it eventually.
Well, we did, and that was the whole idea to do that. Now we have 5 homes on the Cimarron lots that are valued at over $400,000, that all the taxing bodies will be able to reap the benefits of the new property taxes that are being paid by the new property owners. So that's the long-term thinking that we have. The property was listed for sale for years with absolutely no interest. We were able to come up with an agreement with a developer that had interest in
For
it.
$170,000 less?
Well, that was, you know, we can only sell, we are bound by statute and how much we could sell property for. It fell within the means of where we needed to be. And what we decided that it's much better to have a piece of property that we're not maintaining anymore, that we have to pay to mow.
The park almost.
I know, but it's still, it's a liability to the village, and it's also an expense to the village. By having these new homes there, we're providing new homes, which we need in the community at a high rate. And now those homes are going to be on the tax rolls, and we'll be benefiting from that. So we will eventually recoup the loss. The property on 2nd Street and Route 14, that has been vacant and for sale
The village paid 700,000 for it.
That was before my time, sir, and I can't, that was before the housing boom, I get it. But that, we listed that property at, very competitively, and we had no offers. We had one offer, they wanted to put something there.
It's gonna come eventually. As you build through this TIF, it would've came eventually.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your comments. If you have any other comments after the presentation and we have our debate over
And
this.
I agree with you about recouping the village money for that property.
Thank you. Brian, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Village Board, this evening, the request is from Ridgefield Homes. As you're familiar with the project, did receive zoning approval back in '22 for the sale of the property. He's currently going forward with the development of the site. Received site development permits from the village late last year. Has started some utility work on the property. And then is looking to start doing utility work as the weather continues to improve here and spring comes early. We'll start doing some additional improvements to the site. We're in the process of issuing the building permit. Received final comments back from our plan reviewers actually today. So likely the building permit will be ready to issue by the end of this week. If you can go to the next slide. The proposal before you this evening is the developer is seeking some additional assistance through the TIF for just public improvements that are associated with the project. As the board is aware, as part of the approvals, the carriage walk, which is currently existing along Route 14, directly behind the curb and traffic lane on the north side of that roadway, will be relocated further back onto the property and actually onto the subject property within an easement, which will create a 15-foot wide parkway area that'll provide additional separation for pedestrians walking along that stretch of the roadway from the adjacent vehicle traffic lane. Within that 15-foot will be various landscaping work that will also be performed to regrade that area and install parkway trees to provide a tree canopy along the roadway. And then additional parkway trees will also be installed along 2nd Street as well. So those two improvements, the landscaping improvements and the walkways would equate to about $23,000 of the request. Specifically, the majority of the landscaping is regrading and resodding of the parkway area. And additionally, through the permitting phase, the developer did work through with IDOT for obtaining a permit along that roadway. Initially, the plan was to replace the former driveways, the curbing for where those driveways were located at. But one of the conditions through the permitting process from IDOT was to replace the curb line for the entire length of the property, which has significantly increased the costs for performing improvements on the property. The developers here can provide additional information related to the request, but per the village's incentive agreement policy, essentially, if we don't have specific programs in place that are specific to a request, we do allow development community or businesses to petition the village via written request for consideration of any potential incentives. And that's the reason for the discussion this evening. So should the village board be supportive of the request this evening, we would recommend approval of a resolution which would grant the incentive agreement for roughly $73,000 for the public improvements for this project. I'll have the petitioner come forward if he can provide additional commentary on his request, but I'll be happy to answer any questions the board may have as well.
Mr. Dula.
Good evening, I'm Jay Dula, 903 Lakewood Drive in Barrington. As I was introduced by one of the public, I have been building here in the village for about the last 5 years. We finished up a subdivision called Walnut Ridge next to the high school. As we just discussed, I purchased the property on Cimarron, and we successfully sold out those 5 additional ranch homes that we did. We actually averaged $465,000 in sales price of those 5 units. Obviously, a very high demand for ranch homes, keeping a lot of the current residents of the village still here and being able to enjoy living on one level. As Brian pointed out, we are in the process of developing Ridgefield Landing now. We have started the utility improvements in the back of the site, which is the sewer and water that runs for each individual units. It took us about 8 months to get permit from IDOT. We submitted in February and finally received permit late October, early November. So it took a while before we finally were able to get that. We've gotten that, as Brian indicated, as part of their requirements. They now wanted us to replace the entire length of curb along 14 versus just the 2 driveway depressions that were there. That was a part of the original plan, as well as obviously the move in the sidewalk, which is going to be a big asset for the development and the safety of the people that live and use that area. There's things that a lot of times people don't understand when you develop property that are extra costs that come up that aren't there to begin with. ComEd, for example, has modified their agreements in terms of how you now have to provide them power to your site. You now have to provide them pipe underground with a rope there for them to pull their wire through. That ended up costing me about an extra $20,000. NICOR's changed their requirements. So there's things that obviously continue to increase the overall cost of the development. As Brian also indicated, we've been in for permit. We've responded 3 weeks or so ago to all the comments that came from the village building department. And we are expecting, hopefully later this week, early part of next week, to be able to pick up the permit for the first building and get started with that. With respect to the landscaping that we're going to do, all those trees, obviously we consider this a gateway property to the village. We're going to make those specimen trees 3-inch trees. I think the requirement is only 2.5 for those parkway trees that surround the property on Northwest Highway as well as on Second. We're going to make sure that those are 3-inch trees and really have a nice pop to the development. Any other comments or questions that I could answer?
Yeah, I'm going to
You
open
mean
it up.
3 feet?
Pardon me?
3-inch trees or 3 feet trees?
3-inch.
Diameter.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
3-inch. I'm like,
the
that's like
3-inch
really tiny.
diameter
It's
trees.
not gonna be a very good gateway look.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
just,
yeah.
thank you.
I opened up for a board comment. Trustee McAlpine had a question earlier.
I had a couple questions.
Okay.
The first thing that I wanted to know, and I've kind of posed this to our village administrator as well, I'm trying to figure out what was the cost, what did you allocate for the curb replacement versus what it came in at? Because I understand that IDOT came in and made some changes, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming you had something in your original budget for what that should have cost.
There was only, I believe, on the plans, I think it was a total of 40 feet, 40 lineal feet. That was the current existing driveway depressions. That was part of what we were supposed to remove and replace. I'm using that same unit price that was on there. That would have been, I mean, it's a very valid point because obviously that is something that was in our original budget to do. And I think you're right, the proposal that is shown shows the entire length of it. So those 40 feet or whatever that number was included in our original costs.
The other thing, from a personal level, I would like to see the board separate these items. I'd like to vote on these separately. And partially, to be honest, landscaping to me should be something you should have in your budget to have done no matter what. So I don't know how there's any increase in that cost to you for making some of these changes. When I see something like IDOT coming in and making you do things differently than were originally anticipated, and it's an infrastructure issue, I can see us entertaining doing something like that. helping with something like that, because it's different. But some of the other things, I'm just concerned that those should have already been in your plan. If they came in and said you have to do public walkways differently, and it's changing, it's an added expense to you, I'm willing to, I think we should look at something like that and those issues. But again, I wanted to know what the breakdown is, what the real difference is, what's happened to make it different from your original plan. So I would love us to look at these items separately.
Okay,
It's just my humble opinion. I don't know how the other board members feel about it.
I understand.
I think the rough napkin math is about 230 extra lineal feet, so it's still a significant chunk of the curbing cost, so I would agree with that assessment. Your original plan, which we're all excited about and want to have, has now been changed due to circumstances that, you can't do much with. That's part of what the TIF is there to help with, so I would be in favor of that as well.
Understood.
These plans were approved already before the TIF, though, right? Okay, all right, just want to make sure.
Any other comments?
Yeah, he led me right down to my question, thank you. What would you have done if we didn't have a TIF? That's the $64,000 question here. Because again, it's money coming from the TIF that you would have had to incur if we didn't have a TIF. So my question to you is, what would you have done?
I would have probably try to raise the sales prices of the units to see if I could recover it. I mean, as, those are obviously unknown expenses. Obviously, that, you go into something when you got a development, you look at comparables and you believe, okay, I should be able to sell this for this amount of money. If you as a developer end up with a lot of extra expenses, what do you have to do? You have to try to recover them by increasing the sales prices. Obviously, there's a certain level that people are willing to pay. It's no different than the ranches that we built on Cimarron. There was a lot of people that were interested, but they all wanted to buy a ranch at $375,000. And when you look at your costs today, of what it costs for concrete, what it costs for lumber, what it costs for building permits, what it costs for everything else, when you add everything else all up, and it's like, unfortunately, I'd love to sell you a house for $375,000, but you're gonna have to go looking for something else. I mean, to answer that question, the short question, if there wasn't a TIF, that's what we'd had to do. So whether or not we would have been able to get it, I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's what I kind of expected you would say,
Yeah.
because any businessman would have to. You gotta cover your costs. My thing is this: in the span of a half an hour, we've allocated $120,000 out of our TIF. We haven't generated a dime on it yet, not a dime. I made that comment when we had our CIP presentation, and I stand by it. I think that this board and everybody that's related to our building department, our finance department, we have to be cognizant of that. Having said that, like everybody else on the board here, I was in favor of this. I would have loved 8 instead of 10, but I think this is a wonderful development. I would only encourage you to not ask for 100% of this difference. If we're going to give a little, whether it's through the TIF or if we didn't have a TIF through our own budget process, then I think a little bit of that skin has to come from you too. That's my position. I stand by it.
Do you have these marketed or sold, any of them yet, and priced yet?
No, we have not sold anything.
Yeah, you haven't priced
I
nothing
think
yet?
people want to see the activity, and, even though we've had a sign up there, the whole IDOT process, waiting for 8 months for a permit, put us behind the ball in terms of the overall, was our goal to start putting the infrastructure in last September, October, with trying to get a building permit and hopefully be under roof on the first building by now. But unfortunately, plus, I don't think anybody was expecting the weather that we had this year. Most of the time at this point in time, we'd have 2 feet of frost in the ground. And nobody would be building anything related to, a slab on grade foundation. People, as builders, we continue to build basements throughout the winter months. But when it comes to slab on grade, you can't build that through the winter months. But, with this, El Nino, whatever else that's driving this, 50, 60-degree temperatures. Now, all of a sudden, we're like, wow, we need to get started. So, and I think that's a big part of, why, from a marketing standpoint, until we get that building up and people start seeing it, I think that's when we'll get the interest.
So conceivable math, though, could tell you that you could add 5,000 of those units and drop your costs down 50 grand that you're asking us for per unit? Because since you haven't marketed them, sold, or priced them yet.
No, well, I mean, we don't have anything sold. You're
Right.
100% correct. So from the standpoint of marketing, yeah, like I said, yeah, sure, we could raise the price, but whether or not that $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 difference is going to impact the sale of it, we want it all to be a successful project.
Right.
I
agree.
It doesn't make sense to have a nice building sitting there and not having people in it. I mean, and as the mayor brought up, I mean, if we're $400,000, average sales price, or approximately $375,000, whatever the price would be, that's adding close to $4 million to the tax rolls, as opposed to a vacant piece of property now that's not generating anything in terms of real estate taxes or sales taxes for all the businesses that are in the area. So, it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, but on the tax roll, though, how much would we actually see? A couple $1,000 bucks? I mean, it's not going to be as much as $4 million. I mean, in what you're technically proposing.
That's how, I mean, we only get 4.86.
Yeah,
I
it's
talked
nothing.
about this in my sleep. We get 4.86% of the tax bill.
Right.
Tax
So
bill.
if you're asking us to flip $70,000, I mean, how soon before we would actually recoup that?
It'd be roughly a year and a half of the TIF. From a development perspective, if you're correct. So this site currently is in the TIF. So it's a vacant property, not developed. So any development that occurs on the property will generate, the new growth will be all increment. So each individual unit, roughly, just comparably, 3-story townhouses in town, roughly their tax bill is around $5,000 currently. 10 units is $50,000, conservative estimate. So on an annual basis, this property will generate $50,000 of increment to the TIF on an annual basis. So the $70,000 request would be recouped within a year and a half of the TIF, once the project is occupied.
Because it's a TIF.
Correct. And the improvements that are they're public improvements, there would be a TIF eligible expense from that perspective. So it's, that's, from a recoup standpoint, eventually this project, when it is developed and constructed on the site, it will be generating money to the increment, or to the TIF, not just, what the developer is requesting reimbursement of. For the length of the life of the TIF, the 23 years, it'll continue to generate increment for the TIF that the village will be able to benefit and use elsewhere in the TIF. And then from a staff's recommendation, this standpoint would be that we would only reimburse if, depending on what the dollar amount is determined to be, that the village would only reimburse that money at completion of the improvements. So once they are completed, and then once there's occupancy of at least one building, so that you're guaranteed that that property is generating some increment from that standpoint.
If I could be so bold as to summarize the group, just since we've gone kind of far afield here. We love the project. We love when you sold it to us. We were bought all in. There have been some changes. We know this is going to be good in the big picture because it's probably one of the best scenarios, which is a zero participation property in the TIF that will generate increment. But to a couple of comments down here about we'd like to make sure that we're continuing this as a partnership. We're willing to give a little bit on the unforeseen increases, but maybe just not the full amount that's being asked. I think that's fair across the board. I know that's a position that I'm going to take.
All right, with, Trustee McAlpin had, Trustee Weinhammer, did you have any comments? I was just going to, thank you for summarizing, so I don't have to summarize now. Trustee McAlpin had kind of mentioned something, but did you want to make a formal motion to amend?
Before that, rather, because I know then it would be these costs here, but as mentioned, the curb replacement did have some in the plans before. Brian, would it make more sense to either table it, so then a different agreement could come forward with the amount the board's requesting.
Yeah, I think that'd be,
I would much rather table it and
Sure.
get the information so we can all have the facts and figure out where it is and then revisit this.
Yeah, because in your, I had asked, and then when I saw the slide here about the public landscaping, in your letter, it said traffic signaling, and I thought that there had something, you had to do something with traffic control. There was traffic control in your letter.
Oh,
And that relates to really nothing
the
here.
construction of,
Yeah.
the
So,
construction.
I was, if Ellen wasn't gonna be successful in that, I was just gonna say, why don't we just table this and you can recalculate, work with Brian, and come back.
That's fine.
You know, I know time is of the essence for you, but, you know, we can get something turned around relatively quick.
yeah, just for clarification, so the concern is the difference from what the curb replacement was originally proposed versus what was requested, so that linear footage difference. The landscaping, is there, from consensus from the board, is that something that the board is open to or does not want included? I guess.
I would just like it broken down by what was originally proposed, how much where did additional public landscaping costs come in? Did something happen, or was that originally in the budget? What changed? I want to know on all of these different increments, what changed so that you're coming here saying, hey, I've got some additional costs? Where did all of them come from? You know, I'd love it just broken down by the three different components so we can look at them and see what we can do.
I would also ask that you look at your potential sales price, and you're talking 10 units at even 3,000 a unit, that's another 30 grand, right? That's almost half of this. My personal opinion is I think we should find a way to do 50-50, not just split it up one thing or another. And to me, if you want to buy a townhouse on 14 and pay 330, you'll pay 333. That's my opinion.
I won't sell it for $330.
Whatever it is, $3,000. I'm talking about $3,000 more. Yeah, $3,000 more, whatever your sales
gotcha.
price is gonna be.
Okay. Okay, makes sense to me.
Do I need a motion to table this, or just withdraw the proposal for right now? We don't have to do anything? Okay, till next time. We'll consider this withdrawn till the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to Ed, you know what, I did something that, it's not on here right now, so I skipped over. Well, I'm gonna, you know, it's not on the agenda. I don't know. Before we go to, the, administrator's report, trustee McAlpine had asked me, under our former, what was known as trustee reports, she had a comment she wanted to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, number one, thank everyone that has come out to the informational meetings. We have, as much as we'd like to have more people come out, we've had some very good, robust discussions, questions and answers back and forth. And that's what, you know, when we did this as a board, when we decided to put this on as a referendum, we committed to saying that we were going to have as much community outreach, as much information as we could get out to people, so that our residents could be well-informed, make decisions, whatever that decision would be. So I just wanted to thank the people that have taken the time, even on the board, that have come out and done extra effort, from our assistant administrator, who's done a wonderful job, and our administrator, mayor, everybody that has participated in it. To me, it is how our government is supposed to work. We're supposed to be there for the people, getting information out to them. You know, we can't make people engage. You know, as much as Chris, our resident, was saying, I'd love to see more people at them. We had a pretty nice turnout when you were at the one at the high school with us. But, you know, we're doing everything we can to be transparent, to get that information, and the chips fall where they may, you know, but that's what we should be doing for our residents. So I just want to commend those people that have engaged.
Thank you. Since I opened up the trustee report, is there anybody else that has something to say on trustee level? Thanks. Minister's report, Mr. Morimoto.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick reminder, we have, speaking of public engagement, we have our next budget workshop meeting on Saturday, March 16th. at 9 a.m. here at the Village Board Room. So we encourage people from the public to come and join us and learn more about the next fiscal year 25 budget. And then I'll just keep going while we have these up here. We also have our next home rule referendum information session. This is the next one on Thursday, March 7th at the Cary Metro Station Depot lobby at 4 p.m. So again, encourage folks to come out and join us. Any questions you might have, feel free. And if you don't have the ability to make that meeting, we also entertain one-on-one scheduled meetings with staff and the mayor. Just contact Village Hall and we're happy to arrange something. And then finally, I'll turn this one over to the chief to announce.
We're going to have a coffee and cookies with the chief on March 13th between 5:30 and 7:30 at the Municipal Center. I encourage everyone to come out if they want to engage me in conversation or have questions answered or things of that nature. And we'll have some staff members here as well. And then the second thing I wanted to make everyone aware of, just as a reminder, is the Hill Striders Half Marathon will be occurring March 17th. So there'll be significant disruptions in the roadway in the early morning hours of St. Patrick's Day.
Do the clocks change this weekend? They do? Jeepers.
Spring ahead.
Okay. Director Noonan, you have anything?
No report.
Director Simmons? Okay. Any future agenda items and discussion by the village board? None said. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned at 6:51. Any opposed? Say no. They'll get mad at me if I don't say that.